Also, brand new White House reaction to a wave of immigrants flooding into our southern border. This crisis is now being felt all around the country, and political pressure is building for the feds to do something about this situation. The White House says the president has no problem going it alone, once again saying that he will use his executive authority if Congress won't.
These are all very difficult policy problems. The real shame of all this is that the Senate has acted in bipartisan fashion to address many of these problems. So what the president has said is, let's look for ways, since House Republicans have signaled that they are going to block that Senate legislation, that common sense bipartisan agreement. The president has said, what can we do using only my executive authority to try to address some of these challenges? That's what the lawyers are hard at work on.
The lawyers are hard at work on figuring that out. Simon Rosenberg is the president and founder of think tank NDN and a former Clinton campaign advisor. David Avella is the president of GOPAC. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to have you here. So what exactly, Simon, do you think the president would do in this situation if he is forced to, as we just heard from Josh Earnest, go it alone? What does that mean?
Well, I hope we don't get to that point. I think what the president's saying is we've passed a good bill on immigration reform out of the Senate. We've also now put forward what they call a supplemental, which has additional things that we need to do to help bring this border crisis to a close. The ball's in Congress's court now. He's made his moves. It's time for Congress to act. And I'm optimistic that Speaker Boehner will be able to bring the Democrats and the Republicans together in the House and get something meaningful done.
To do the $4 billion? Much of which does not go to sort of a long-term answer, many would say, for actual border security and making sure that this, doesn't continue to happen.
No, I think that what Democrats want is both passing comprehensive immigration reform, which has passed the Senate, and moving ahead on this supplemental. We think those two things together will go a long way to solving this current crisis.
David, what do you think?
Well, it is pure political spin, because this would not have addressed the hundreds of the thousands that are coming across the border right now. Had the president been serious about putting up the fence along the southern border, that's what would have prevented this. And in 2009, the GAO came out and said it would cost us about $6.6 billion to build the fence. The president's now asking for $3.7 billion to solve the problem that wouldn't have been a problem had we had the southern border built when Congress approved it and they started moving on it years ago.
There's so many I guess the president's leadership is one of the big questions here, Simon.
Sure.
It feels once again that the White House has been caught off guard by the situation, and they're scrambling to play catch up, and they're saying, well, now, Congress, you better do something about it. But where is the sort of overall presidential mission of saying, OK, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop the staunch of travel this way. In terms of the people who are here already, I'm going to do A, B, and C. There are governors who are saying that there are people coming on buses to their states, and no one from the federal government even told them they were coming.
I think the president has been very aggressive about laying out his plan. I mean, it's both comprehensive immigration reform and it's a supplemental. And I think one thing that's very important to recognize is under George Bush, the undocumented population in the U.S. increased by over 3 million people. We saw a huge increase. Under Barack Obama, there's been no increase in the undocumented population in the United States. The flow has been stopped. The people who are coming to the border,
well, apparently
we're catching.
There's some very creative ways that's being counted as well, Simon, which has been...
No,
Simon,
absolutely not.
Simon, the
pure
president's
data on
economy has made it a lot less attractive for folks to want to come to this country, given the policies of this administration.
It's a good
trying
point.
The economy's done far better under Barack Obama than it did under George Bush. So that's a nice try.
That doesn't matter. If you're a mom or if you're a child who's alone right now on this border, every one of us feels compassion for these children who made this arduous journey. Many of them are lucky to have even survived it. And I think the question is, where's the plan? And you can tell me that it's going to take $4 billion. But my question would be, it's always a huge amount of money. That seems to be the answer for every problem. Where is the sort of overall mission and understanding? Look, this is who we are. These are the borders we're going to put down. This is who's allowed in. This isn't who's allowed in. If a law needed to be changed, why did we have to wait for an emergency like this to make that happen, Simon?
The Democrats have been trying to change the immigration laws for 9 years. The Republicans have been blocking them for 9 years. We've been saying the system's been broken for 9 years. We've been putting solutions. The only thing the Republicans want to do is deport the kids. All they're saying is we're going to deport the kids.
So, David,
that's the only answer.
Democrats
We've got to get more from the Republicans.
These answers, and it's you folks that have caused all of the problems. Why don't you solve this problem then, David?
Well, it starts with securing the border. What Simon is advocating is that we have no policy on immigration. We have a policy right now that says if you want to rush the border, you get to come to America because of our humanitarianism. But if you are an educated, highly skilled worker, when your visa's done, you must go home. This is a fractured at best immigration policy that shows no leadership.
Because anybody who wants to walk across that border in this situation from these three countries can do it. Because the border guards aren't at the border.
That's not true, Martha. That's not true.
And there are areas that they can never cover.
And in fact, we've been deporting tens of thousands of adults.
David, what's not true, Simon?
We've been deporting tens of thousands of adults from these three countries over the last 3 years. It's the kids, because of a Bush-era law, that we have different restrictions on what we can do in a humanitarian way to deal with these poor children who are coming into the country.
Which means they're allowed to cross.
And Simon, why hasn't the president addressed that in legislation, which he said he was going to do, but didn't when he asked for the authorization for more money last week?
I think what he said is that we are very open. The Democrats are very open to changes. We're waiting for the Republicans to respond.
You didn't offer them last week.
Well, you're right. The president has said that he wanted to change the legislation, and then the White House backed off on that a bit, and that's where we are today, which is a mess, essentially, and a lot of children that need some sort of answers, and a nation that needs a plan. Simon, thank you. David, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so meanwhile, Fox News getting an exclusive inside look at one of the facilities, because as you remember, the press has been blocked from these facilities. We were told we could not come in. Congressmen at different points were told they could not come in, and now Fox's John Roberts got in there. He got a first-hand look inside the facility in McAllen, Texas, right on the border with Mexico. He has a good understanding of what the problems are. John is joining us now from Mission, Texas. So, John, you just heard us arguing about the situation down there, and you and I spoke earlier. There are porous areas that you cannot physically close off, essentially. What do things look like down there?
Let me just say this, Martha, that your guest who rebutted you when you said anybody who wants to come across can, dead wrong. Because, and the Border Patrol will acknowledge this, anybody who gets onto an inflatable boat or a raft or whatever starts to come across the river, if they are determined to come across and they will not turn back, and the Border Patrol will take no aggressive action to turn them back, they will get here to the United States. You can't stop them. The headline today, though, is that there is perhaps a little glimmer of good news here. The Border Patrol says that apprehensions of illegal immigrants from Central America are down from a peak of about 1,200 a day, now down to about 600 to 700, though no one is rushing to declare victory here. You mentioned that border detention facility. We did get an exclusive look inside there yesterday. It's the first time that cameras have ever been allowed into the McAllen detention facility for the Border Patrol. We found about 460 people there, down from a peak of 1,500. Still very crowded, though, with as many as 80 men crammed into one probably 12 by 20 cell. In terms of the overall reduction in apprehensions, it could be due to sort of a seasonal drop-off. July, when things get really hot here in Texas, fewer people try to cross the border. Additionally, the Border Patrol believes that the message may be going out to Central America not to come here. It still remains a huge problem, though. I took an exclusive tour of the border over the weekend with Texas Republican Congressman Louis Gohmert. He is a fierce critic of the president's request for $3.7 billion in emergency funds to deal with this crisis. He says you don't need to spend all that money. What the president needs to do is declare the border closed to illegal immigration and say that everyone who crosses this border illegally will be sent back home.
Until we do that, they're going to keep flooding in here. As soon as we send them back and they realize, wow, we spent $5,000 and we got nothing in return, that flood stops.
His colleague, Texas Republican Congressman Steve Stockman, said if the president wants to do a photo op, an appropriate photo op and an effective one would be him standing in front of an airplane full of illegal immigrants headed back to Central America, Martha.
And he said, the White House said that most of them who are crossing would not be allowed to stay, but now they're, of course, dispersed all across the country, and it's very dubious as to whether or not any of them will show up for court dates, or very few of them. What does the Border Patrol that you're talking to down there say about this situation, John?
You know, I talked to the chief of the Border Patrol in this region, Kevin Oakes, yesterday. He says that they're finally beginning to get their heads above water, that they're finally getting a handle on this crisis. They're processing the illegal migrants more quickly. There are more places to send them. And he said that DHS, to its credit, has given him just about everything that he's asked for. In the bigger picture, though, the Border Patrol Union says this is going to be a long-lasting, enormous burden to American taxpayers. Interdicting these people and processing them as they come across the border, taking care of them in the interim, providing them with medical care, social services for those who'll stay, long-term education, and the prospect, of course, that those who stay will ultimately end up taking jobs that might have gone to Americans.
I don't think the American taxpayer can quite grasp of what's going on down here and how much of their tax dollars are being wasted.
Yeah, there's also the criminal element as well, of course. The drug cartels control most of that side of the border on the Mexican side, and they're making money off of everybody that crosses this river. Martha?
John, good reporting. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you later.